Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting of the Township of Union Planning Board to order at 7:03 p.m. Can we have the statement on the Sunshine Act, please?
Pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law, notice of this meeting stating the time and place was satisfied by the the special meeting notice with the Star Ledger and the local source, newspapers of general circulation within the Township of Union, and posted on the bulletin board at the Township of Union Municipal Building.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
I'm going to just call everyone and put it that way. Mr. Cohan? Mr. East?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Espinoza? Mr. Miller? Ms. Perkins? Here. Mayor Figueredo? Committeeman Bowser? Mr. Frame?
Here.
Ms. Khan?
Here.
Chairman Johnston?
Can we swear in the engineer, please?
You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. So on tonight's agenda, we have a special hearing, only one item that we'll be hearing tonight for application 2023-08. For those who are following these meetings, as the vice chair, I'm presiding over this meeting tonight just because our chairman is conflicted as he lives within the 200 feet radius of the applicant. So I'll be presiding over the meeting tonight, and he's also, I think, out of the state too. So quite a coincidence in that. So with that, we have our one item for new business, application 2023-08, 407 Chestnut Street, LLC. Can the representative please approach?
Thank you, Acting Chairman. Richard Skolnick on behalf of the applicant. Thank you very much. Of course, we very much appreciate this special meeting under the circumstances and bringing us in. I'm representing the applicant, 401 Chestnut Street, LLC. The parcel's identified on the tax maps as Block 2505, Lot 9. It's at the intersection of Chestnut and Washington. I know at least some members of the board saw a proposal last year for a convenience store. That's not before you anymore. Tonight's proposal is to convert the existing vacant building into a child care facility with 9 classrooms, 5 on the first floor, 4 in the basement. The proposed changes to the exterior are quite modest, primarily the construction of an outdoor play area. The child care use is permitted in the relevant NC neighborhood core zone. I note that not only is the child care use permitted, there are special provisions in the municipal land use law that recognizes child care as inherently beneficial. That means that the use itself, as defined by the state legislature, serves the public good and promotes the general welfare. And this inherently beneficial designation is going to be part of our discussion on the C2 variance, on that parking variance that we need. So normally inherently beneficial is when you're over at the Board of Adjustment and you need a use variance, but I believe it's going to be relevant in our discussion tonight because the legislature has picked out this use as a special one that's important and says that it's serving the public good and promoting the general welfare. I have 4 witnesses. Each are going to be fairly brief. We're going to start with the representative of the property owner, Ben Sion Eisenberg. He's going to talk about the operations. He's going to talk briefly about an existing child care program that's now housed at the Y on Green Lane and how that program is going to come over in substantial part, hopefully, to this facility on Chestnut. And he's going to also talk, of course, about how the faculty and the staff and the students are going to be arriving in buses and vans, because we do need that parking variance. So we appreciate that the board's going to be concerned about not overburdening the parking in the area. And Mr. Eisenberg is going to talk about, the students coming in on buses, students and staff coming in buses and vans, so that we can have a parking situation that works both for the school and for the neighborhood. We have Paolo Dantes, he's the architect. He's going to briefly run through the interior changes. Joseph Bacci from EKA on those exterior changes. And then we'll have Mike Petrie on the variances. 4 variances in total. I'm going to suggest that 3 of them are very minor, de minimis. One of them is a 1% increase in impervious. That's less than 200 square feet. One of them is for the parking stall length, and a third one is for a loading zone. Mr. Eisenberg will testify that they can do loading off hours. So those are 3 relatively minor variances, and then the parking variance. So with that, Acting Chairman Lee, I'd like to call our first witness tonight.
Please proceed.
Okay? Vincione. We have him stand over there, is that okay?
And we will need to swear him in.
Would you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Ben Zion Eisenberg, Ben-Zion, Eisenberg.
Mr. Eisenberg, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Affirm.
Okay, Mr. Eisenberg, could you just tell us a little bit about your relationship to this project and the ownership group?
So, as a board member of quite a few of the entities that have had the honor to be involved with the majority of city group that has moved in within the last few years, which I'm pretty sure you all are aware. And we are very honored, not at just this stage tonight, that you've came out in a summer evening of your own time and gave us a special. The secretary of the board had said it was impossible to push in the previous one. He had loaded down a bunch of stuff from other months and has suggested that, and we are very grateful to everyone here being here tonight. So thank you for that, and that's part of a lot of different things that the town has not just graciously, but went out of the way to try and accommodate as good neighbors the uses that we need. And I've been honored to be involved in a lot of that. I'm sure anybody that's in official capacity has seen me and know me. And so part of that is to helping establish this next step is a specific childcare that will cater to the needs of this community of about approximately, let's say, 100 families that are at this point here, and they have specific needs. So until today, we have partnered with the Y at Green Lane and had most of our kids were catered through that partnership. We've outgrown that, and so Mr. Goldstein, which is a private citizen, which has bought this building, obviously will know that there's an intention at some point to do a superette or supermarket, something like that, grocery, whatever you want to call it. It was a combination of a deli and something, and that was pulled back, that was pulled out, primarily because you realize that it's not something the best beneficial for the surrounding area, and this is something we brought up. The officials said, yeah, this is something that the town would want in there. So as my capacity that I've helped out and others, he's asked me to get involved and try to walk through this whole process. And on the other side, which I've been involved in different entities and programs of the community in the educational and other capacities, I was asked to get involved in this. And so being that I know the operations of the childcare that's been running now in the Y's facility at Green Lane, and I, with God's help, will be involved in cheering and directing in a board capacity the creation and the future growth of this new childcare. I'm here to whatever information is possible to clarify and to have a full understanding of what is anticipated here and what we're looking for here tonight.
So right now, the property is owned by a limited liability company,
Correct.
and the idea is that a not-for-profit
Is going to
entity is
use-
going to be,
is going to running the
formed?
operation, correct.
Okay.
Either by lease or by taking over, correct.
okay, and what are the ages of the anticipated students?
0 to 5.5, which is the allowed ages of a childcare.
Okay, and of course, the state of New Jersey has to license the facility, and
Correct.
there's not only initial inspections, but all sorts of ongoing inspections in accordance with the rules and regulations of the state of New Jersey.
Correct. Constant, and it happens to be this last year, we were in constant inspections, and all these inspectors have been here from top to bottom in the State Department of Families and Children's. We're not just very satisfied, but they said with flying colors. They haven't seen a lot of the centers that were operating to this stringent, following the rule of the law and the gist of the law. of
Okay,
the
and
regulations.
as I mentioned in my opening statement, the proposal is to convert the building into 9 classrooms.
That is correct.
Okay, and the state dictates how many students and how many teachers have to be in those, can be in those classrooms depending on the ages.
Can or should be, correct. So the two factors. Factor is the size of the room, which will allow the amount of kids that are allowed, and then the factors of which age group is in that room will determine the amount of staff that needs to be according to that.
Can you give an approximation for the board of the total number of students? Over time, of course,
Right,
you're
we're
not going to be there
start.
on
The
day
capacity
one.
of this is approximately 200 students in total, and the approximate staff, obviously depending on the ages, where there are more or less, is somewhere between 20 to 30 staff members directly for those classrooms.
Okay, and all the staff have to be licensed by the state of New Jersey?
Not all the staff
Okay.
needs to be licensed. The director needs to have a master's. There are a few that need BAs, but the rest of the staff it needs to be trained. Every staff member goes into the NJCCIS, which is the website of the state, and goes through a training, numerous hours, like 40 hours. Huh? 20, yeah. It's a long thing. I know at the beginning of the year, the new trainees, the new employees, it was something that they had to go through, besides that they need to get physical examinations, et cetera. There's a bunch of things
Okay.
that they need to comply, and all of the staff that has been this year were compliant 100%. Yes, so that's a training they need to go to. That the word's not licensed, they are approved by the state.
And the director has not been hired yet, but you're searching, and assuming we get approved, the process goes forward?
The director, correct.
Okay. Let's talk about that important issue. Let me cover one issue. We're looking for a variance because we don't have a formal loading zone. Do you feel like you need a loading zone, or whether it can be done off
So loading zone, if I
hours?
understand correctly, is that most facilities like these, which is childcare, you would have most of these kids, if not all of the kids, coming by the parents or by carpool, correct? That's generally.
I'm just talking first about a loading zone for packages or boxes that come in
you're
like a
talking about commercial
Federal
loading zone.
Express cup. We'll get to the transportation
For kids,
first.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Thank you.
My fault, because loading has a lot of meanings.
Yeah, so most of this, generally, I can say it's from existing operations. I know elsewhere, but I'm just using the existing childcare facility to have a clear comparison how the operations work. So the most of the things that are delivered over there, which is food or supplies, etc., it's supplied by specific companies. They do the deliveries early morning, 5 to 9, and they're done generally. During the day, you'd have an Amazon courier, something like that, stopping from time to time. But the big deliveries that need to come in there would be early morning.
Okay, so you feel you can manage without a formal loading zone? If it's Amazon, they could
Correct.
park in one of the spaces
They walk
for 2 minutes?
They're walking their stuff anyhow. So.
Okay. Let's talk about.
Garbage pickup, I think that's also something that's addressed in the same thing, is done after hours. We don't want them during the hours.
Okay.
That's how they operate in the town anyhow, that these commercial stuff, they generally work at night.
Okay, so let's talk about the parking, because there's 9 spaces. We need, I believe, 27, depending on how you calculate it, maybe even a little bit more, based upon the ultimate number of the teachers. Tell us about how that's going to work and how you're going to sort of work with the community in terms of the transportation.
Right, so let me take a step back before I get into the details, and this is something, I don't know if the people that have got to know their neighbors have noticed that, but some did. Generally, a house here in Union, so every house is required to have 2 parking spaces, correct? One inside and one outside. Minimum of one inside and another inside. And the general of that is because a household has 2 cars. There's the mother and the father, which has 2 cars, at least in the regular household composition. In our community, the requirement in the city community, the women don't drive. It's we can get into that conversation and a social conversation if you want to. It's something, I'd say it in a nice way. We keep our moms as the queens. They get chauffeured. They work at home. They do a lot, but there are other reasons as well, for modesty, etc. But in the community, it's a given that the women in the household don't drive. They don't have a license. They don't even get driver's license. And anyone that can check up in the zip codes of the city community, they can see very clearly, these are public records, that the males outnumber the females with driver's license 10 to 1 or something like that, or even more than that. This has been the standard for the last 75 years since we've been here in this land, and people started to drive. And there are very few very few that get for circumstances, sometimes family circumstances, things like that the rabbis will ask them. Yeah, there are family compositions or things like that, or a situation in a family which they will be asked that they should get their driver's license and be able to drive. But in generally, I'd say 95% or more don't have driver's license. They don't drive. Just an understanding. If someone knows the community, they know this is something that's just a fact of life. In a childcare setting like this, who's going to be teaching, or who is teaching now? It's generally the mothers of the kids, right? These kids, the families that are sending to this group type, expect a certain type that's going to be in the class. They expect a certain type of faculty in there. So who's going to be teaching? It's some older teens, mostly moms of these kids that are in the community, and they go out, even though they have large families. I'm sure you're aware, we all have large families. They go out and they know this is their duty because their kids' school need teachers. And this is the only way that it happens. So the majority of a childcare, first of all of our teachers that teach the girls' portion of the school, even in the school, is all going to be ladies, and most of these are moms of the kids that of the school or the childcare. And the childcare, the youngest class are still mixed gender. All of those are ladies. So there are some men that will be working. There's a supervisor, maybe some of the teachers there will be, but the majority of the faculty in the school is ladies. And all of these ladies, as I said, don't drive. All of them don't drive. So they walk, if it's walking distance, or they get bused in or shuttle. So now we are, this childcare that's in Greenland is not within walking distance. All of the staff over there gets bused in, either if they put their kid on the bus and they get together, which most don't. Most get, there's a shuttle, like a 15-passenger van or something like that, and they get picked up and they're taken to the school in the morning, and they get driven home after the day is done. So the majority of the faculty which would need parking over here is coming in by special shuttle vans, I'd say. Some of them will come on the bus, but most of them will be. But now over here, there's even more that some of these are walking distance. They'll walk. They're not going to wait for the shuttle to come pick them up. If they're within 5-10 minutes, they'll walk. And these kids will probably be the only kids that will be brought in without a bus. All the other kids, most, I'd say 95% or more of the kids will be bused in. So that really answers the other question that in a general, we started talking before, in a general childcare, you'd have parents dropping off their kids. There needs to be a drop-off stage. There is almost no such a thing. Yeah, if a child runs late, there's reason for that. Yeah, you'll have the father or the mother take a cab and bring in the kid or walk in. But in general sense, 95% of these kids get bused in. So besides those few kids that the mom is teaching and they walk within walking distance, they will be walking in. Other than that, all of them are bused in, and the teachers are, most of them are on those shuttles.
So from an operational standpoint, are you comfortable that 9 spaces is going to be sufficient on a
Not sufficient
day-to-day
amount.
basis without having people park on the nearby streets? Because we know it's tight there, right?
100%. We don't expect to use one parking space outside of that parking lot, and probably not all 9 will be even utilized.
Okay. And
That's
you're going to have
expectation.
the women who are teaching there culturally are not driving, but you're going to have clear directives to your teaching staff that they're not allowed to drive to work.
They don't drive to work, but let's say there are a few men in the building, right? They can drive, as long as it's within the capacity of those few spots, it's fine. There's a supervisor in the building, there's a manager in the building, there will be some men in the building, janitorial, whatever it may be. If they come with a car, that's fine, they can come. But we don't anticipate in this operation that we will have 9 cars that will be parked there on a daily basis. You'll have a visit, they come in and go out, but that's basically it.
Okay, Chairman, that concludes our testimony.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Eisenberg, I have a question. You mentioned that the building has been approved for childcare. Have you applied for a license and received it?
No, I did not mention that this building has been approved.
Not this building, you're referring to the Y.
To the Y, correct.
I see. Okay. And,
No, we can't be approved before
so
we
you
have,
the site,
right.
I understand. So that if the number that you spoke of, 200, what type of vehicle or vehicles or shuttle process would accommodate infants and a grouping of 200 people for that building?
Okay, so the majority of those kids, the infants, there are 2 I-4 rooms in there. If you know what I-4, I'm sure you know. I-4 means kids that are under 30 months. So those kids, most of those kids are not bused in.
Correct.
So the majority of those kids are kids of the teachers. You want the mothers to come in.
Yes.
They need babysitting for their young kids in order to come teaching. So the majority of those kids in the infants are, in the infant room, all of those kids are kids of the teachers. So their mom is going to come either if they're walking there because they're walking distance, they'll walk in with their carriage and bring the kid. If they're coming on that shuttle van, they will bring the kid along with them.
So the van will be equipped with appropriate
Correct.
childcare.
If it's restraining
Facilities and
seats,
so forth.
whatever is on those vans, correct. They're
The
currently like,
number 200 kind of struck me. That's a lot of children
Correct.
in one place. I would think it would take, how many people can come on the shuttle at a time?
Commissioner Perkins, I don't think we were clear. There's going to be full-size buses, and we're
Okay.
going to show you that.
no, she's asking about the
He
staff.
spoke of
She got the
vans,
staff.
shuttle, and bus.
Buses, just wanted to be clear.
So in fact, there are buses.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
So
sorry.
there
We will,
would be about 55 people?
It could be
I
up
think-
to that.
but,
We were
on the bus, I think it's a 54 capacity, the
Yes.
New Jersey bus are 54,
We
correct?
have to leave that one seat open. Okay, I understand. And may I ask whomever, where will the buses offload?
We're going to address that with the
Yeah, all of
engineer.
that has
because
been addressed, and we'll go
we
through it.
anticipated you might be asking how they're going to sort of load in and how's there going to be room for stacking.
So I'm sorry that we all spoke about the vans, was our capacity, we were addressing the parking need. So we were talking about the staff, the staff that's coming in, the kids are all coming in on buses, not on those shuttles.
Thank you.
Mr. Slotnick, can you provide some testimony with regard to the hours of operations? of this
I
one?
apologize, I missed that. Can we go, hours of operation and the days of the week? Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you. Generally, it's a 9 to 3. Could be a few minutes before, because maybe some of these moms that need to accommodate these drop of their kids a few minutes earlier. But the general of this operation is a 9 to 3, Sunday to Friday. Friday actually is a shortened day, 12 o'clock, because of Shabbos. But Sunday is a very limited. Most of those young kids don't do Sunday. There may be some of the older kids in childcare that will do Sunday, but the majority of the kids don't come Sunday. But Monday to Thursday are full days, and Friday is everyone in there but half a day.
Can
Thank you, Counselor.
Also, I just wanted you to clarify for the record. I wasn't sure if he said that all the teachers were going to be bussed in, or, I mean, that's what my notes said. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
The majority
Okay.
of the teachers will be coming in on those vans.
Mostly on the, some teachers will
Some
end up
people
coming on
join
the
their
buses.
kid. Let's say a mother has a kid that's already 3 years old and goes onto the bus and she jump on the bus because where she is on, where her kid is on the route, it's not that much longer. She'll get onto the bus and come with the bus. But the majority, the operations are that most of those teachers come onto those vans.
So obviously, a very intricate methodology has to be established once you're operational on the time of the pickups and to get everybody there and to work out the streets and the schedules and the timing and all that. Not something you can really do in advance, but I
No,
imagine that's quite a bit of work.
goes in nights and nights of work. We have Mrs. Weinberg that has been at the helm of them for a few years, and it goes in a lot of effort to have that run on a very tight schedule.
Are they bused currently to the YMCA?
Correct. All of those kids are bused. As a full operation with besides the support inside the center itself, and there's a full-time bus manager that is there at every unload and load. It's a full operation. Those buses are a full-fledged operation.
Bus manager helps get the kids on and off the bus,
The
and
kids
there's a
control the
program.
drivers, the buses, the whole 9 yards. Every bus today has a tracking, which not just the manager sees live and the secretary inside of his. Every parent can call in. There's a system. Every parent calls in, see where their bus is. It's a full-fledged operation, just the busing itself.
May I ask if there's going to be any before or after care, as some establishments do? Will all students and
There
people
may
be
be a very
free?
limited, which I mentioned before, general at times are 9 to 3. There may be a few kids that the mothers need to drop in a few minutes before, so there may be a specific need for that. So there will be, let's say, one class to those kids, a few kids that may stay after, but it's a very limited, and those are those few that will be walking in or bused in. So
So no
or-
authorized aftercare process?
there's no full-fledged aftercare for these age, no.
Any other questions from board members?
Sir, how many buses and shuttles would you say will be going in?
So buses, I'd say 3 safely, to be on the safe side, they may come to 4. Our current view of the amount of kids is 3, it may come to 4. The shuttles is generally, it's 2 vans to cover those
2
teachers.
vans and 3?
And 3 or 4 buses, correct. But just to understand operations, how they work. So these vans generally would be coming in before the buses. You want the staff to be there when the buses are coming in already. So they're in, they drop the staff, they're out, then the bus comes in, and it takes the kids off. You have the teachers and everyone control the kids coming off the bus, going in, they need to be supervised.
You'll have someone greeting them as they get off the bus?
Sure, helps them come off the bus, you hold them at a holding place till you have everyone, you take them to their classes. If you have the time, Mrs. Weinberg can explain exactly how that operation runs, but it's a full-fledged operation and everything has a plan and a system.
Sir, are there any handicapped children or staff members?
Currently not, and we beg God we shouldn't, but we are prepared if and what there are those physically handicapped kids, we are prepared to accommodate.
And that's usually governed under state laws and regulations pertaining to accommodations for ADA purposes.
Correct.
Yeah, and the architect may be able to address that.
Mhm.
I
But
think there's some
that has
upgrades, I
been-
know, in the parking, the handicap spots, so
And
you'd save that
internally
for
as
the
well, internally
architect as well.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah. You have an anticipation of how many staff are going to be actually parked during the day?
I think his testimony is really very, very few.
Yeah.
And not the women, and a couple of men perhaps, because we're very aware of that, and he's got to have a system that works. There's not really available parking on the street, so can you, parking on the average day?
Well,
Okay.
I'd say all of this we can take from existing. We don't need to think it up. On existing day, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 cars that are serving the childcare that come into that to serve the existing program that's in the one.
So
Yes,
you have
when
a
go- When
buffer.
you go to the elementary, you'd have much more cars because over there you have much more men over there. But also on a limited basis, most of them don't come in their own car. They come together with others. So it's. But here in this childcare facility, it's a very minimum. I don't see having all our nice spaces filled up.
Any other questions from board members? Just a couple questions on my end.
Sure.
So with the 100 families or approximately 200 students that you're serving through this daycare center, give us kind of just an approximate, nothing ordinarily, like extraordinarily precise in terms of how many of those families and children reside within a 5 to 10 minute walking distance from the proposed location? Just a rule of thumb, just an estimate.
Yeah.
10 minutes, half a mile, half a mile
I'd
walk?
say probably 20, 25 at least.
20, 25?
Yeah, I'd see it. I think that's a fair estimate.
It's around a quarter, basically, a quarter of,
Approximately, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe, it's very hard, you got it on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to have you
Yeah.
go through your list in your head and try to figure out where each of these folks live. Just want to get a good sense in terms of how many of the population will be most likely walking to the center.
So let me go back to this, but I was saying that these people may be walking. I was referring to the teachers. Most of the kids, the vast majority of the kids, even though that are living within walking distance, will be going on to the bus.
Will be going on the bus, okay.
Yes.
Hence,
We can talk about why, but this is the fact.
hence why you answered, I think, Mr. Frank's question about having around 3 or 4 buses
Correct,
available.
because we anticipate the vast majority of the kids.
Okay,
If I recall, the bus is easier on the parents. It's a longer day for the kids, and it's more routine,
It's
right?
part of that is also part of it. If you have a younger
The kid's
kid.
away for another
Yeah,
hour, hour a
if
day.
if you have a younger baby that's not going out, now you have to schlep that baby out and bring them back if there's schedule, so it's just,
And my other question is, I know daycare centers sometimes operate differently in terms of how they set up their cohorts or their groups and the number of hours that are being serviced. Are basically each of the classrooms going from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., or based on the certain age groups, do you have kind of half days, staggered periods as a result?
there may be. No, I think all of these kids are on the same schedule.
Because of the busing, they have to be locked
Yeah,
into the
look, you
busing
could
schedule.
change bus schedules also, but these
Yeah.
age kids are all on. Mr. Imam, correct me if I'm wrong, all of these kids that are in this, on the 5.5 are all on the same schedule.
Any other questions from board members, council, engineer? Okay. Hearing none, do we have any questions from the public? All right, hearing none, I think.
Okay, Acting Chairman, I'm going to call our next witness, Joseph
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very
Joseph
much.
Bocci from EKA Associates. He'll go over the exterior changes, and he's going to show you some stacking exhibits so you can see how we could stack the buses in what we believe to be a reasonable fashion.
Would you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Joseph Bacci, B-A-C-H-I.
And Mr. Bocci, you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you provide your professional qualifications for the board, sir?
Sure. Appeared before this board many times at this point, but licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey, licenses in good standing, BS in civil engineering from Rutgers University, 2012, licensed in 2017. No issues with the license since.
Chairman, a little side issue, just so we did read the review of the fire department, no issues with anything in there.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Mr. Bocci, you're familiar with the plans that were submitted to the board?
And just to note for the boards, we stipulate and
Ah.
certify that you are an expert witness, that you can testify tonight, so, yeah.
We appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Bocci, can you just run through the plans fairly quickly, focusing on the changes, and of course, we want to discuss the busing situation. And you're calling up on the computer the sheets that are in the plan set that's in front of the board?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the set that was submitted to the board. I'll be brief because I think most of you have seen some iteration of this before, but for the sake of the public, though, I will go through it. Just starting on sheet 1, our cover sheet, you can see, sorry, the site highlighted, the highlight's not coming up anymore, but you see lot 9 here, this flag-shaped lot. Just kind of setting the scene of where it is. It's in the NC zone.
Whoops.
Oops. Addressed at 407 Chestnut Street. You see bound to the north here is commercial properties along Chestnut Street. To the east, you have residential dwellings. To the south, you have a commercial property here at Lot 10, and then along Washington Avenue. And then to the west, you have Chestnut Street with commercial properties across the street there. Going to the last sheet of this set, this is our boundary and topo survey. As we've stated, not much is changing, so let me run through what's going on there now, and then I'll highlight the changes. Zoom in too much. So it's a flag-shaped lot. If you follow the cursor, you can see that's kind of going around. It's generally rectangular with this small section here, approximately 50 by 30, kind of sticking out to Washington Ave. Total lot area is 14,635 square feet, slightly under the requirement. We're not changing that. That's an existing nonconformity. There's a one-story masonry building. Again, very minor changes to that. Architect will go into it. The interior changes, I'll shortly discuss what's going on outside, but the building is not changing much from a site plan perspective. There is fencing along the sides of the property. Existing lot coverage is 85.1%, whereas 80% is required, so that's an existing nonconformity. Building coverage 32.21% versus 30% required, so two minor existing nonconformities. You'll notice the front yard is pretty close to the existing right-of-way. You only have 0.8 feet there. We're not changing that. 10 foot is required. The side yard on this side here, 1.58 feet, 10 is required. And we have a lot width of 90 feet versus 150 required. Again, none of those are changing, existing nonconformities. In terms of grading, it's a relatively flat site. Stormwater drains either to Washington or to Chestnut. It's, there's no ponding. It's not going, generally not going to any neighbors. Mostly the lot's going off to Washington and a portion to Chestnut, and we're not proposing to change drainage patterns there. I'm going to move to sheet 2 of our site plan, or try to. Here we go. So really the bulk of the changes are we're adding a walkway here on this egress drive aisle adjacent to the building so students can walk from the back to the rear. Adding a play area in the corner here where the existing parking lot is. Adding window wells is required for the basement classrooms. You can see the 4 window wells throughout the building here. Some other ancillary site improvements, adding an ADA space, milling and paving the existing asphalt. Again, not making any changes to the bulk existing nonconformities. I think it was testified, we're adding 169 square feet of impervious. It's really a de minimis change that goes from 85.1% to 86.25%. And again, none of that stormwater is going to the neighbors. It's going to Washington and Chestnut.
Okay, some of the parking spaces aren't long enough. We called that out. Any operational or other issues with the
No, I think an
parking
18-foot space is fine. You have the overhang here on the south, or, I'm sorry, that's east. North is to the right. Apologies. I don't know if I mentioned, there is a 25-foot buffer required to residential properties. Existing and proposed is 10.3. So if we were to lengthen these spaces, you're only getting closer to the residential property down here. So I think keeping it at 18, A, it's adequate, and B, it kind of helps not interfere with the neighbors there. We are also proposing to replace the chain link fence down at the bottom of the site here. It will be chain link with privacy slats, so you got a nice, privacy with this neighbor here. There is some vegetation there. We're going to keep that vegetation to still have a buffer, even if it is a little shorter than it's supposed to be. And again, existing nonconformity. We do have 9 spaces proposed, 1 ADA space closest here to the building with an access ramp adjacent to it, and again, the walkway up to the front of the building. But the main entrance will be in the rear here in terms of ADA. There's also an ADA exit off of a classroom in the corner here, down from this ramp. Not a main entrance or anything, but that's an emergency exit. And then 8 spaces down on the bottom of the site here, along with a proposed trash enclosure. That's really it for the site improvements.
Okay, lighting, any landscaping here?
Yeah, we're proposing, real quick I think I touched on the grading already. Yeah, I touched on that, so I'll skip the grading sheet.
Okay, no material change, correct?
Correct. Just
Okay.
making it ADA compliant and maintaining existing drainage patterns. Lighting, we have 3 building-mounted lights and 3 pole-mounted lights. Lighting is adequate for the site. There is de minimis spillover, none to the residential property, and very minor to the commercial property, all within the allowable limits.
Okay. And we prepared some templates to show if up to 3 buses were there at the exact same time, correct?
So we'll just call this Exhibit A then, or A1?
Yeah, we'll mark this as A1. This
Oh,
is
sorry, this
not,
is not it. Hold on.
okay. This is not in the plan set, something we prepared for tonight at Exhibit. Could you you'll call out what the sheet is, does it have a date on it?
I believe it is dated yesterday. Bear with me. Slowly loading. Yeah, so this is titled Vehicle Maneuvering Plan, and it is dated July 8th, 2024.
Okay, vehicle maneuvering plan.
I
Okay,
do
and this
have
was,
some 11 by 17s, but you guys all have, we'll send you electronic copy, or would you like the?
well, they have it, they're seeing it
Got
in
it.
front of them, so
Okay.
we're marking it A1 vehicle maneuvering plan with a date of 7/8, and you put some templates on. Let's talk about really the important one. You heard testimony from Mr. Eisenberg that they think there's going to be 3 buses, potentially a 4th bus. 3, maybe 4. The board's going to be concerned. What happens if they all come at the same time? And can you show them what you did with, to get 3 buses in there at the exact same time and how that could work?
Yeah, I think there was a question. I'll just briefly, the general maneuvering of the buses.
Okay.
I think there was a question about that, but we have, if you look in the top left and middle top, 2 different options coming from either direction on Washington, showing that this is actually a 65 passenger bus, can maneuver within the site, enter from Washington from either direction, and maneuver, come up this drive aisle, and exit from Chestnut. So that's one option we have, and the idea is to drop the children off at this drive aisle. You can the bus can come into this area here and then head out onto Chestnut.
And of course, there'll be day-to-day procedures that are going to have to be established to load the kids in and to
Yeah,
and to
as
take
the
them
applicant
off.
testified, they have a very robust system to make sure it's flowing smoothly. They're in constant communication with each other, and I guess the director coordinating when the buses are coming and how they're moving. So the idea is to stagger them. My understanding is it takes about 5 to 7 minutes for a bus to be unloaded with the children. So the idea is to have them unloaded before the next one comes. But in the worst case scenario, you can fit, as shown in this exhibit here, you can fit 3 buses within the property if they all were to arrive at the same time. One can come up close to the stop bar, one right in the middle of the drive aisle, and one it would temporarily be blocking the parking lot. But I think as the previous testimony indicated, not much going on in the parking lot at those spaces. So if it's temporarily blocked, it won't be an issue for operations. It would be, at most 5 minutes, and then the buses would move on and out.
Okay, so that would have, the anticipation is for 3 buses, if they were all there at the exact same time. And then, obviously, operationally, they'd have to, if a 4th bus was added, to make sure that bus arrived a few minutes later.
Correct.
You can't predict 100%, but that bus, they'd try to make arrangements where it arrived later after those other buses.
That's correct.
So that at least one bus could unload in that 5 to 7 minute period, and everybody would slot forward.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so from an engineering standpoint, do you feel this is a reasonable and safe methodology to get the buses in there?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable, safe, and it'll work for the site.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Bocci?
I think that's it. No comments from the engineer review letter that we can't comply with.
Okay. And I mentioned the fire department letter, which
Yes.
we took a look at. It's more of a construction code type of thing. I didn't see anything in there, Chairman Lee.
Thank you. Question from the board?
Sir, I would just like to ask you, on the wish list, that you have CO detectors tied into the fire alarm system as well.
Okay. I think that's more for the architect.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
Mr. Wall, if you're-
Appreciate
I
that.
want to make sure.
All right.
Yep,
You got it, thank you.
you got it.
Any other questions from board members,
Just a
council?
little clarification. So the buses would use this corridor to come in, they would come in using the full-service driveway on Washington Avenue,
Correct, yeah, let me go to,
and yet they would exit specifically and only out through to Chestnut Street.
that's one option we have. There is room to maneuver and back into the parking. If they were to drop off in this area, you could back out and come out of Washington. I think coming out of Chestnut is a little cleaner. But the maneuverability is there.
All right. Then, and how would the stop bar operate? I know it seems a simplistic question, but if there are 3 buses in line, is the stop bar automatic? Is it operational for when any vehicle pulls forward, or is it
It's just a painted
painted?
strip,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's not a bar? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was thinking, I
Yeah.
pictured my.
My apologies for
No, no, okay,
not being
it's
clear.
fine. And I'm assuming this is relatively clear. When the youngsters come off the buses, it is walking path. And-
Yeah, there's a lot of hatching. I apologize from
That's
the
all right.
background.
And so what door will they be going into?
I believe this is the main entrance in the rear, right? Probably
So
is.
they'd have to walk back away from their bus drop-offs.
Well,
Potentially saying that there are 2, perhaps even 3. The children would be escorted or would walk back to the back of the building where the parking lot is?
That's correct.
So no one would go across the front and enter into the front?
Not the children.
Okay. And yet the reception area, I believe, is in the front.
We'll have the architect
Okay.
address
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
That's it.
Council engineer, any questions on your end?
Yeah, the only question I had was the driveway. Are both entrances two-way, or is one way?
Yeah, Chestnut is only egress,
Okay.
and Washington is
So they'd have
entrance
to
and
come in
exit.
through Washington and out, and then go out.
Correct.
Follow-up to that question would be, is there anything that either through signage or do not enter sign that would be placed to clearly establish that you are not able to enter through Chestnut Street?
We'll make sure
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Like, at a certain times, that's a good idea, I think. We'd be happy to work with whoever
I
you
think if
designate on
we-
appropriate.
Yeah, if we didn't put a do not enter sign, we will. I think we did.
Yeah, that needs.
Yeah, we have a dual do not enter and stop sign there.
Okay.
Okay.
It was just,
Yeah, that's-
it was
Yeah,
a
no,
small
it's-
notation on the plan then, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's a little,
Yeah.
it's small, but it's there.
Okay. Any other questions from board members, council, engineer?
Okay, why did the driveway on Chestnut Street turn from an ingress to an egress driveway?
We really thought that was just better circulation there. And giving us enough room for the ramp here and coming around. So we really don't have enough room for it to be both. But are you asking why it's egress instead of ingress?
Yeah.
Really just think it provides better circulation on site.
Is there a safety issue at all? It would seem like the drop-off for the kids, the door to the bus is going to be on
Yeah,
the
that's-
sidewalk side. If you go the other way, I think you're going to have to bring the kids in front of a bus.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so you have, the right side, the kids are exiting, so we want to put that right to the sidewalk here.
Okay.
Any other questions? Questions from the public? All right, hearing none?
Okay, we'll call the architect for some brief testimony. Paulo Dantas.
Thank you, Mr. Baji.
Thanks.
If I could have him sworn.
Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Sure. Name is Paulo Dantas. First name is Paulo, Paulo. Last name is Dantas, Dantas.
You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
and you've been recognized by this board as
Yes.
an expert in the field of architecture.
And the license has been current, and have a bachelor's of architecture from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and the license is current.
For stipulates.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank
Mr. Dutz, you've obviously been here, so we don't want to repeat the testimony, but from the interior and architectural standpoint, can you provide an overview for the board and for the public?
Sure. The project scope is consistent, is to alter the existing medical office building. We're going to put a use group of I-4 and E as a daycare facility. In our floor plans, we have the existing basement. It's going to be about 4,489 square feet. And then our proposed ground floor, which is existing, 4,489 square feet as well.
Okay, if you're going to cite to your sheet,
Yes.
this is the set that was submitted as in our package?
That's correct. That's
Okay,
the
and-
original package.
Okay, you can call out the sheet number
Sheet
and the last.
A200. Thank
Okay,
you.
and just
It-
call out the last revision date for us. Hope we're set on that.
I have a June 10th.
Okay, sounds about right. Yep. Okay, so we got some changes, obviously, to comply with the state standards in the basement and make these rooms
That's correct.
safe and efficient for a nursery school.
Yes, so what we did with this, the daycare facility is going to be children older than 2.5. In the basement, we're providing an access at the rear of the building with an enclosed staircase. Also, the existing mechanical and sprinkler room located in the front, we're looking to remain. If alterations need in order to accommodate for the new spaces, they'll be adjusted, but we only know the requirements of the mechanicals once we get into the permitting stage. But we feel that this size of the mechanical room and janitor's closet is sufficient enough to accommodate for that. We're going to have 4 classrooms. Each classroom will have an accessible toilet area and also 2 accessible sinks. We also provided another second stair of egressing located towards the front of the building. And additionally, we provided 4 window wells. Each classroom will have its own window well. I think it's approximately about 4 by 6 window wells, which accommodate about a 6 to 7 foot width in window.
Okay, so you need windows for that basement level, essentially.
We cannot have windowless basement occupants, so we provided more windowless. Not only I also feel comfortable having not only the 2 egress stairs, but also then still the window for the fire department and also for egressing if needed in a very dramatic escape.
Okay, and obviously the state of New Jersey has to sign off on these drawings
That's
as
correct.
well for the school requirements. Okay, and then first floor?
First floor is the existing ground. We're really not adding any additional square footage. This is going to have both 2.5 older and also 2.5 younger. We are proposing a rear vestibule that will function as the primary entry and exit for the faculty and the children. Reception area is being proposed off the vestibule where guests and children may be checked in or out of the facility. Ramps also have been provided at the rear to accommodate the entrance to the vestibule. Adjacent to the reception area, we did provide a small office next to the vestibule. And we have 5 classrooms. We're proposing in each classroom an accessible toilet area along with 2 accessible sinks. And we also have 2 additional, we have the 2 classrooms which will directly with the 2.5 and younger, will have direct egress from the classrooms, which will be located somewhere, one in the front and one towards the back.
Okay, I think there was mention in the review letter of signage. That'll have to comply. We're not seeking any variance.
Everything that was described from the fire chief, will comply that, and additionally, if anything else comes into the building code. So we're looking for that, not only the building code, the fire chief, but also the New Jersey, the state of New Jersey. We will be compliant to that once we get to
Any
the permits.
exterior changes here?
Minor exterior changes, I think that what we're gonna do is probably just clean up the building, if there's needs for repairs, but everything is really extreme, just minor.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
I think that pretty much concludes, the alterations to the building itself, interiorly.
Okay, questions from the board?
Sir. I see you have a 6-foot wide hallway, correct?
I'm sorry, 6 foot?
6 foot wide hallway, yes?
Yes, I do.
Is that ADA compliant
Yes, it is.
with the amount of 200 students?
Yes, it is. So the way we calculate it is we take the occupant load from the first floor, and we calculate not only that area, but 72 inches does give us a larger amount of students to occupy that. The downstairs students, they have more of the stairs to be egressing throughout, and so they wouldn't occupy so much of the hallway itself.
So, sir, with the 2 stairways,
Yes,
they are both for means of egress?
that's correct.
So my question then is, why would the door to the rear of the building open in? If you're trying to get out,
So the way this is constructed, especially this one, right, correct? We're talking about this one in the back. So we're coming up the stairs, and then we would egress towards the back. This, we just left it as in order to get downstairs to the first, to the
door
basement.
so the stairs come right out to the back door.
Right, and then in an emergency or exit, escape, it will go straight to the backyard.
Straight to the back.
I have a question.
Just add on to, I erroneously spoke to the previous gentleman. Do we have in the fire department wish list, can we have the fire alarm also have CO detectors attached
That's correct.
to the fire alarms?
Yeah, we could do that, yes. We'll comply with the entire list that we received today.
And the fire, and the CO detectors?
Yes,
Okay, thank you, sir.
thank you.
I know this may be operational, but the youngsters that you described, 0 to 2.5 and 0 to 5, where will the children who will not be able to walk up those stairs be
So
placed?
the 0 to 2.5 are located in this classroom, if you could see it.
In the front,
In the rear, right here, which they has a direct exit
on the first floor?
on the first floor.
Okay,
And then
thank you.
the other classroom is in the front and also has the direct access, which then our engineer provided us the ramp as a exit.
Because it's typical that those children may be evacuated in their.
Usually they're directed right away to the exits,
and
to the
typically
outside.
in their cribs, because they,
Exactly.
okay, thank you.
Is the basement fully ADA accessible?
We still made it full ADA accessible. The only item that doesn't have is an elevator. We do feel the ADA is not only wheelchair bound, but also for gripping and grabbing, and also the way we step. There's different disabilities, but this still accommodates for the other disabilities. Given that also the 2.5 to 5 years old is being accommodated not only in the basement, but in the ground floor, those accommodations and the same type of teaching will be simulated. We could provide the wheelchair-bound children on the first floor, or on the ground floor, I apologize.
Did you say there's an elevator?
There is not.
Any further?
So children who are using wheelchair
They'll be
will be
on
on the first
the
floor,
ground floor, correct,
ground floor.
yes. And I think we accommodated, I believe, a small ramp in the rear for the accessibility.
That's all. Any other questions? Questions from the public? Hearing none.
Okay, Chairman, we'll call our final witness. It's going
Thank
to be brief on the planning testimony. Michael Petrie. He's a planner. He's also a civil engineer, an architect, a traffic engineer, but tonight he's really going to be talking about that parking variance a little bit. If I could have him sworn, please.
Can you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
J. Michael Petrie, Petry.
And do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Petrie, can you provide your professional qualifications, primarily as a planner, but feel free to mention the other areas so the board could get a full flavor of your expertise.
Certainly. I hold my bachelor's degree in architecture from the New Jersey Institute of Technology with a minor in urban planning and landscape design. I have been licensed as a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 1992. I'm licensed as a professional planner by virtue of examination since 1994, and I'm licensed as an architect in the state of New Jersey since 1995. I also hold licenses in New York and Pennsylvania for engineering. All of my licenses are current, and all of my licenses are in good standing.
Can you testify regularly as both a civil engineer and a planner and a traffic expert?
I have testified on more occasions than my wife cares to admit.
There you go.
And with that,
I
the
don't know,
board
I've spoken with her
stipulates-
recently, and I heard she likes to have you out working. But Chairman, I'll submit Mr. Petrie for tonight's purposes as an expert in
So
planning.
ordered.
Okay, so to recap and try to expedite with Mr. Petrie, there's 4 variances altogether. One of them is for not having a loading zone. You heard the testimony of Mr. Eisenberg that they could do deliveries on either off hours or with a regular Amazon van. Any detriments do you see to the zone plan or zoning ordinance by not having an off-street loading zone here?
No, because as described, the loading for a larger vehicle, for instance, could take place at the same location as the buses are loading and unloading children. So any larger vehicle could be accommodated there during the off hours.
Okay. There was to have a loading zone, you'd have to lose more parking also, right? You don't want to lose any.
I don't know that you could accommodate a loading zone the size that's required by this ordinance anywhere on this site,
Okay.
just given the configuration.
Okay. We had the variance for minimum parking stall length with 18 feet provided, 20 required. From a traffic expert standpoint, any detriments to the zone plan by not having the 2 feet when we have that overhang?
No, again, as the engineer indicated, in the rear, along the rear property line, there's overhang that can be provided on the curb. 2 feet is standard. The ADA space by federal law is only required to be 18 feet deep.
Okay. We have the impervious coverage. We're going up by about 196 square feet altogether. We're at 85.1. We're going to 86.1. Did you call that a de minimis type variance given the entire project?
I think I calculated 168 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
So it's even less than that. So yeah, we have a very de minimis. I don't even think your minor drainage standards require accommodations for something that small. So your own ordinance, I think, recognizes the fact that this is a very limited amount of impervious coverage to be
Okay.
added.
And in terms of the C2 variance, where we have the benefits to the public, the planning benefits to the public, does that outweigh the detriments, or can it be granted without substantial detriments? You obviously have benefits to the public by having the child care facility and finding an appropriate location.
Yes, I believe that there are a series of benefits, but I think we want to talk about parking before I go there.
Yeah, 100%. So we have the parking. We recognize that there's a unique situation here. We're under park per ordinance based upon 3 spaces per 1,000, or if you use the employee standard, we would even need a few more. But you heard the testimony of Mr. Eisenberg, how it could be handled operationally. You heard the testimony of Mr. Bocci about how the buses could be loaded in. Do you have an opinion on whether the parking variance could be granted based upon that C2 criteria, where the planning benefits of the project overall outweigh the detriments?
I do. I believe that the plan that's been outlined by the operational people here is appropriate for this particular site, for this particular use at this particular location. We have a facility that has some strong religious beliefs, and those beliefs are reflected in how the facility actually functions. And in bringing the idea of the busing of the students to this facility from the way it's functioning today at another location, and bringing the staff in by vans is a perfect solution that melds with the culture. And I think that's why this works here. So we have a fairly unique site that allows us, and if I'll click back maybe to the site plan for a hot second, that allows us to bring the buses in and queue them along this long drive along the side of the building. So we have the ability to bring the buses off the street, stack them on the side of the building, unload them, and get the kids into the school and move them out. We're not going to be blocking traffic. So that's what makes this work for this use at this particular location. So with that having been stated, I believe that the positive criteria that supports the C2 includes, as Mr. Skolnick indicated, that child care centers are considered an inherently beneficial use. And inherently beneficial use, by its very nature, serves the public good and meets probably the most important purpose of planning, which is planning purpose A, that it serves the general welfare. But in addition, I think there are two other purposes of the act that are advanced by the approval of this application. Purpose G is providing sufficient space in an appropriate location for a variety of uses. In this particular case, there's a very strong religious base within the immediate area that needs to be served, and this particular location functions very well based upon the approach that they've taken for this use. Finally, while not a specific purpose of the act, this is an adaptive reuse effort that maintains the existing structure and repurposes that structure for a new appropriate use within the area. I'll say that this approach flirts with Purpose J by virtue of the prevention of urban sprawl associated with the vacant building and site. All of these conditions represent benefits for the proposed project under the C2 criterion. When I look at the potential detriment, I see none from the minor increase in impervious coverage, the lack of loading space, and the lack of depth on the parking spaces that already have overhang. I look at the parking separately because the residential neighborhood along Washington could potentially be impacted by a lack of parking if cars were to end up on their street. However, the plan that's been set forth by this user, based upon the transportation plan that they have established, solves that problem and creates an appropriate number of parking spaces for the handful of staff that may drive and for visitors that may be coming to either perform inspections or to look at the facility for their child's care moving forward. So as such, I don't see a substantial detriment associated with the granting of the parking variance under these circumstances.
Okay, and just to wrap up on the criteria, to believe that the benefits to the public substantially outweigh the detriments as mitigated by the parking plan and the operational plan?
I do.
Okay. Chairman, we've condensed a little bit because we went on a little longer than we thought. If you need more, Mr. Petrie's here to go into it further.
Questions from the board? Council engineer?
Mr. Skolnick, just for clarification, is the applicant suggesting that as a condition of approval, they'll agree that the students will be bused to the facility?
I think that's the plan, yeah, the vast majority. It has to work like that.
Right, I just want to make sure that we're
Yeah.
clear on the condition.
Any further questions?
Just one, no one mentioned anything about, and this is forward-thinking, drop-off of food. Will food be prepared at all on site? No, sir? Mr. Eisenberg, thank you.
Okay, there's a
That is
nod.
sufficient for me.
The record will reflect a nod by Mr.
Thank you.
Eisenberg.
Any other questions?
Yes. Has Union County weighed in on this application?
For Chestnut Street,
Yes.
we'll, not yet, but if it's required, we'll have to send the plans over.
Yeah. I bring it up particularly based on the fact that at the end of the school day, buses are going to be leaving out that driveway, out onto Chestnut Street. And I'd be very surprised if the county did not stipulate that there be a site easement triangle assigned to
Okay.
that driveway. And if they don't do it, then I will.
Okay?
Smart.
So I think we could agree, we'll have to put a site triangle on there, on the plan, so nothing goes in there blocking the view of the driver on the way out. It seems like a reasonable safety condition here.
And I recall, Mr. Hatterer, that was in your notes, that the Union County Planning Board had to approve this as well. Thank you.
Mr. East, did you have a question? Pass. Okay. And just a note on that, and because Chestnut, I do believe, is a county road?
Yes.
Yeah. And per that, the county planning board will most likely look at that egress for Chestnut. So it's just to,
We'll send the plans in and
yeah,
see if we get a response from them.
yeah. Okay, wonderful. Okay. Any other questions? Questions from the public? All right. Would you want to sum up?
I'll waive my summation, just want to say thank you again for coming in on an extra day in the summer. Greatly appreciated.
All right, wonderful. Comments from the board? Any comments from the public?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I would just like to thank you guys for occupying this building. As a resident of the neighborhood myself, this building's been dormant for, over 2 years, so I thank you for this thoughtful project.
We appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Just for the record, you're not within the 200 feet.
No.
That's correct.
Clear
It's
check.
not. I checked it.
No, I just said.
I checked.
Wanted that reflected
That
on the
was my
record,
quorum.
just to avoid a conflict, and to avoid us not meeting a quorum for the vote.
We checked before I raised that concern.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Comments from the public? Would you like to come up and provide a comment to the microphone? Just identify yourself for the record. You don't need to be sworn just
My
because
name
it's
is
a comment.
Uwe Schlesinger. I live around the corner, and I think that what Mr. Eisenberg makes sense. The logistics and these people make sense what they're saying.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Well, hearing none, can I entertain a motion to approve application 2023-08?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. East. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Khan. Can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. East?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes, I'd like to add, if I may, some conditions for the approval. I think that it's pretty obvious that it will happen, but I'd be comfortable to vote yes in that we want to be sure that you will comply with the fire officials' review notations, and of course, all the state laws requiring childcare licensing. And should this license change or the building population change, I would be comfortable that you need to come back to this board. With those stipulations, I would agree and say yes.
Mr. Frame?
Abstain.
Ms. Khan?
Okay, with 4 yes, 1 abstain, the motion passes. The application moves forward. And with that, we do not have any further new business, so can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Perkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. East. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed. Meeting adjourned at 8:24 PM.
Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.